So class, let's talk about 7.2 part 1, dealing with arithmetic sequences. So we're back to the idea of working with a sequence, so just taking our values and listing them out. Being that it is arithmetic means that we can add or subtract to jump between terms in our sequence. So there's no multiplication or division. This is all addition or subtraction to move from one term to the next. So an arithmetic sequence is a sequence in which each term after the first. So this idea of each term after the first. So I can think of that as a sub n plus 1. So if my first term was a sub n, then term after that would be a sub n plus 1. Differs. So differs, difference, we know this means our subtraction from the preceding term. So that preceding term was just a sub n. So if I'm at a sub n, the next term is going to be a sub n plus 1 by a fixed constant called that common difference d. So what this is saying is our common difference, even though I said it's addition or subtraction, to get to the next term, we can think of adding a negative would be the same thing as subtraction. So our common difference d is found by taking a term and subtracting it from the previous term will give us our common difference. So for example, 5, 9, 13, 17, 21 was a sequence. If we wanted to figure out what that common difference was, I'm simply going to take one of my terms, 9, and subtract it from the one prior. So 9 minus 4, 9 minus 5 would be 4. So my common difference D in this case would be 4, which we can check. 5 plus 4 is 9. 9 plus 4 is 13. 13 plus 4 is 17. 17 plus 4 is 21. So let's start taking a look at a couple examples. If we wanted to find the first 5 terms in a sequence, and they tell us a sub 1 is negative 12, and our common difference is d. So they're telling us what our first term is going to be. So our first term is negative 12. To get to the next term, all I would have to do is add 5. And so I'm going to end up with a negative 7, add 5 would be negative 2, add 5 would be 3, add 5 would be 8. So the first 5 terms, given that this is an arithmetic sequence, saying the first term is negative 12, the common difference is 5, we could list these out. So these would be the first 5 terms. Now, if we want to find the nth term of a sequence, the last time we found the 5th term, say we wanted to find the 500th term. Well, we wouldn't want to take each individual term and add 5 and go through the progression all the way to get out to 500. There is a formula we can use that will create a shortcut. So let's just show how we can create this formula. So if I say my very first term, a sub 1, is just a sub 1, that's my first term. My second term is going to come from a sub 1 plus whatever my common difference is. That's how I'm going to find the second term. If I wanted to find the third term, well, this is a sub 2 plus my common difference. Well, I know a sub 2 is really going to be a sub 1 plus d, that is a sub 2, plus d again to represent this plus d. So I can think of this, a sub 1 plus d is a sub 1 plus 2d's. If I wanted to find the fourth term, well, that would be a sub 3 plus d. And I know my a sub 3, this a sub 3 is really a sub 1 plus 2d plus d again to represent this plus d. So this is a sub 1 plus 3d. Now I can continue this on. So a sub 5 is going to be a sub 1 plus 4d, and then a sub 6 is a sub 1 plus 5d. So by this pattern, I can conclude that a sub n is going to be a sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d, because this 5 right here was simply my 6 minus 1. So that's where the 5 came from. The 4 on this one is 5 minus 1, because remember it was a sub n that we're working with. So this is our formula to find any term in arithmetic sequence. It's and we're going to classify that term as a sub n, will be the very first term, so I need to know what the first term is, plus n minus 1, so I'm going back and looking at the previous term, times my common difference. So let's do one. So find the terms of the arithmetic sequence. I want to determine what a sub 13 is given the sequence -3, 1, 5, 9. So again, this is a sub 1, this is a sub 2, this is a sub 3, this is a sub 4. I want to know all the way out here to a sub 13 what that's going to be. All right. So first off, I need to figure out what my common difference is going to be. So if I look at a couple terms, so I'm going to take 1 as my a sub n plus 1, subtract the term prior, so subtract a -3 to get a common difference of 4. Or you might well just look at the sequence and say, well, to get from -3 to 1, I had to add 4. So to figure out what a sub 13 is, it's going to be my first term plus my n minus 1 times d. My first term is -3 plus my n is 13 minus 1 times d, which is 4. So this is -3 plus 12 times 4. Work all this out, I get 45. So to go all the way out there to a sub 13, that term is going to be 45. If I wanted to come up with my formula in general for the same sequence to determine any a sub n, well, I know a sub n, based on my formula, is a sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. And I know my a sub 1 is -3 plus n minus 1. I know my d is 4. I can do some distributing. So this is -3 plus 4n minus 4 when I distribute this into each term. I can combine -3 and -4, and I'm just going to write with the variable first. So my general formula for a sub n is just going to be 4n minus 7. All right, so if they actually wanted, like in the last slide, we tried to figure out what 13 was, we'll get a number. We got 45. But now in general, I could find any term n by this, 4 times n minus 7. Let's look at another one. Determine a sub n for the sequence. They tell us now the second term is 9 and the third term is 15. Well, remember, we need to know what the first term is, and they only tell us what the second term and the third term is. But we know when we are deriving our formula that a sub 2 really is just the first term plus d. All right, so if we look at this, well, I know my second term is 9 is going to be equal to a sub 1 plus whatever my common difference. Well, from 9 to 15, that's 6. So that's plus 6. So I can work this out. Well, the first term had to have been, if I were to solve, 3. And you might have just recognized that to get from 9 to 15, I had to add 6. So to go backwards, I would have subtracted 6, and you would have got 3 as well. Okay, so the first thing we wanted to figure out, well, what is the first term? Now I can work with this and say, well, a sub n now is going to be my first term plus n minus 1 times d. This first term is 3 plus n minus 1 times my difference, which is 6. So this is going to be 3 plus 6n minus 6. So I can say that this is finally going to be 6n minus 3. Same sequence. Now, if I wanted to find that 18th term, Well, I know a sub n is going to be 6n minus 3 from that last slide. So a sub 18 is going to be 6 times 18 minus 3. So this ends up being 105. So the 18th term of this, just given two values, I can still find that 18th term to be 105. All right, last example. New sequence. Determine a sub 1, and now I'm given a sub a to 16, or negative 16, and a sub 16 is negative 40. So they're not giving me two terms that are next to each other. They're giving me two terms within my sequence. Well, I can say a sub 16 is going to be a sub 8 plus 8 common differences. So if I'm at the 8th term, to get to the 16th term, there would be 8 differences that would have to take place. So I can use my numbers here and say, well, that's negative 40. This is negative 16 plus 8d. I add 16, this would be a negative 24 equals 8d. And so d would equal a negative 3. So now from that information, I have found our common difference. All right, so I can work with this and say, well, I know my formula, a sub n is a sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. Start filling in some information. Let's work with this negative 16. So a sub n, I'm going to say, well, that's really the one that I know. That's a negative 16. A sub 1 I don't know, plus 8 minus 1, because my n again was my 8th value, my 8th term. My common difference I found was negative 3. So now I have only one unknown, that a sub 1. So this is negative 16 equals a sub 1. 7 times a negative 3 would be a negative 21. If I add that over, I'll end up with 5 equals a sub 1. So determine a sub 1 for the sequence. The first term of this sequence would be 5. So along the way, I also found out that my common difference is negative 3. So take a look at 7.2 in Math Excel, part 1. And next week, we'll do 7 part 2, part 2, which will be arithmetic series. And then that will be due the following weekend. But this assignment is the last one that's due for this Sunday by midnight. As always, email me and I will get in contact with you to be able to help you through any of these problems.